Alright, truckers and truckers, time for the final episode of Review of the Day, which is Inquisition. Dr. Bashir is preparing to attend a medical conference at Gasperia Prime as Odo teases him about the fact that such conferences are always held at sunny beachside resorts. As they talk, Chief Bright enters the infirmary, having dislocated his shoulder kayaking in the hollow suite yet again. Bashir fixes up Ryan's arm but warns him not to go kayaking for a while and that his shoulder will be tender for the next few days. The next day, the computer wakes Bashir at 0700 hours. He's extremely tired to the point where he has the computer confirm the time. Dragging himself out of bed, he packs to leave the station and bids farewell to his beloved toy bear, Kukala, while Captain Sisko's voice come over the intercom, telling all the senior officers to report to ops. Heading with the intention of going straight to his transport after briefing, Bashir finds Deputy Director Sloan has arrived from Department of Internal Affairs with the contingent officers to Starfleet Security and is discussing something grim with Sisko. With Sloan and Sisko emerging from the captain's office, the outside Internal Affairs believes that there has been a major security breach on DS9, and a member of the senior staff has been covertly passing information along to the Dominion. Sloan will conduct an investigation, but for now the senior staff are relieved of duty and confined to quarters, and Bashir is dismayed to find Sloan has already cancelled his appearance at the medical conference. Now in his quarters, Bashir orders breakfast for the replicator, but finds it out of order. The door chime rings, and one of Sloan's officers, Lieutenant Chandler, informs Bashir that Sloan wants to ask him some questions. However, things do not seem right as she escorts him to the wardroom. A pair of officers carrying phaser rifles run past them in the corridor, but Bashir is told not to worry about it. Sloan comes across as surprisingly charming when he meets Bashir. Casually asks about Bashir's experiences with the Dominion. They go over Bashir's imprisonment and his work with the group of genetically enhanced humans, among other things. Before long, Sloan dismisses Bashir after questioning him for a short time and promises to get the doctor's breakfast, as the replicators are taken offline as a security precaution. Later, Bashir finally served his breakfast, but finds him served gag, which was apparently meant for Worf. Examining his quarters, Bashir begins to suspect that someone has been there, select as Kukala is now on his side, but had stood upright that morning, and a pad that Bashir had packed, but since now removed, is now back in the bag. He receives a message from O'Brien. Mr. Sloan grilled the chief for over 2 hours, and every question he was asked was about Bashir. Make clear, Sloan suspects him of being the traitor. Once the transmission cuts out, one of those deputies enters and escorts him back to the wardroom. After arriving, Sloan asks if Dr. Bashir received his breakfast. Bashir, guessing that he was intentionally denied any food, lies that he did. Sloan immediately wants to clarify his notes since his last meeting. Immediately, Sloan's tone of voice has changed from a nice, easygoing tone at the last meeting to one that is more stern. He questions Bashir about the fact that he was isolated from their prisoners while in German Camp 371 for a number of days, but Sloan claiming that General Montauk believes Bashir was gone for 7 days instead of the 5 that the doctor believes. He also questions the relative ease of his escape, how his runabout was left in orbit of the prison in their cell, sold everything he needed to construct a transmitter to get himself beamed to it. In Sloan's version of events, the Dominion broke the doctor during his time in prison and allowed him to escape. The allegations that Bashir was coerced into spying for the Dominion, but his memories are repressed. As such, even if Bashir is spying, he hypothetically would not know it, a process known as engrammatic dissociation. When someone realizes he won't get anywhere with interrogation, he escorts Bashir in irons across the promenade for all to see. Later, Sisko visits Bashir in his holding cell, telling Odo discovered that Sloan had a son in Starfleet who was killed when his ship was destroyed by a Gemini patrol. Sloan enters and admits that he believes Bashir supplied them the information that allowed the Dominion to target his son. When Sloan initially refuses to allow Sisko to talk to Bashir alone, Sisko uses authorities commanding officer Deep Space Nine and demands to be allowed to see Bashir when he likes, to send all interrogations from now on to make sure his rights are not breached. Sloan is forced to agree, and Sisko promises to get Bashir to get him out of this. In the next interrogation, Sloan says when Bashir worked with a group of Jem'Hadar and attempted to free them for the new Kitchener White. Cisco argues that this happened before Bashir allegedly became a Dominion spy. Sloan asserts that this proves Bashir was already sympathetic to them. He then brings up that, while working with the genetically enhanced humans, Bashir gave them access to classified information and they recommended that Starfleet surrender to the Dominion. Bashir says he and the group were just trying to save lives, but Sloan doesn't accept his argument. Captain Sisko was forced to state that he also didn't agree with the findings, and admits that Bashir has made some very poor judgment calls recently, but argues that doesn't mean he is a traitor, and that all evidence Sloan has is circumstantial. Sloan then questions Sisko's loyalty toward his officer, reminding him that Bashir only came forward about his genetic enhancements because he was found out. Had he not been, Bashir admits that he doesn't know if he would ever have come forward with the truth. After the interrogation, Bashir apologizes to Sisko for not telling the truth about his genetic enhancements. Sisko has to put that issue behind them for the moment, and tells Bashir that while he doesn't think he's lying, asks him to consider the possibility he was broken in the internment camp, became a Dominion agent, and repressed the memory. Bashir insists that, while such a procedure is a medical possibility, he is certain that it didn't happen. Captain Sisko tells Bashir to sleep and they'll talk later. At the night, Sloan visits Bashir and tells him he has an order from Starfleet Command allowing him to neutralize threats to security. And he explains to put Bashir in a maximum security prison until the war is over, unless Bashir is willing to sign a full confession. Bashir tells Sloan where he can stick the confession and is about to allow himself to be removed when he's being transported off the station by a Cardassian-style transporter beam. Bashir now finds himself aboard a Cardassian warship, where Reunion welcomes his operative home. According to the Vorta, Bashir has gone through the same debriefing process a number of times, and the fact that the Doctor does not believe his story surprised him. Reunion does everything he can to insist that Bashir is indeed their operative, claiming to have met him at the internment camp and convincing him to become their operative, but Bashir refused to accept that he would never betray the Federation to the Dominion. Reunion says the members were repressed and offers Bashir the scones and tea he tried to get from the replicator earlier to try and convince him. Rather than believing himself to be a spy, Bashir realizes Reunion is trying to convince him the same way Sloan did, and comes to believe that Sloan is in fact the traitor. The conversation with Reunion is interrupted as the ship comes under attack. Reunion leaves for the bridge, and a few seconds later, Major Kier, Commander Worf, beam aboard and dispose of the guards before returning to the Defiant with Bashir. Now that the Dominion had beamed Bashir out of his cell onto their ship, everyone believes Bashir is a spy, and he can't really explain himself as the evidence is so stacked against him. He tells Captain Sisko's theory about Sloan being the real spy and in league with Reunion, but obviously this just makes Bashir sound desperate to divert everyone's suspicion of him. Captain Sisko orders him removed, and when Bashir turns to O'Brien for support, the chief shows him away with the shoulder he injured, without pain, showing no signs of his earlier dislocation. Bashir suspects something is amiss and tests O'Brien by claiming he injured his shoulder playing spring ball. When O'Brien goes along with this, Bashir realizes that nothing that has happened was real. Suddenly, the Defiance bridge disappears and Bashir finds himself in a holodeck. He is surrounded by 3 men in black uniforms, one of whom is none other than Sloan. Sloan munches for what is like to remove an implant from Bashir's right ear, but the Doctor reacts defensively. Therefore, Sloan gives Bashir the option of removing the implant. The recording from the implant shows that, without a doubt, Bashir's unquestionable loyalty to the Federation. Sloan also comments that had they known about O'Brien's injury beforehand, they would have incorporated it into the program. Bashir then introduces that he was beamed off DS9 in his sleep, so no one noticed his absence. Sloan admits that they only allowed him an hour's sleep in order to raise his stress levels. Tired of games, Bashir demands to know who Sloan works for. Sloan confirms he is not part of internal affairs, but rather he is part of a covert organization known as Section 31, which he claims is part of the original Starfleet Charter but answers to no one. They are charged with really dealing with threats to the Federation by any means necessary. Bashir asks Will what would happen if he was actually proven to be a Dominion spy. Sloan answers that they wouldn't be having this conversation now. Bashir voices his disapproval of Section 31's autonomy and blatant disregard for the founding principles of the Federation. Sloan tries to recruit the Doctor into the organization, citing how Bashir likes to play spy in Quark's holosuites and his genetic modifications that were overlooked to continue his medical career. Bashir tries refusing, threatening to expose Section 31. But Sloan isn't threatened and promises that Bashir will eventually come around his way of thinking. Section 31 agents then sedate him. When he returns to DS9, it occurs to everyone that Bashir's abduction was timed for when he was to go to the medical conference, so his absence wouldn't be noticed. He reports to Cisco that there were no traceable transport signatures at Bashir's quarters, meaning that Section 31 must have gotten him off the station another way or may have been used to transport technology that they cannot detect. Bashir asks Cisco if Starfleet has come up with anything. Cisco states that there is no record of anyone called Director Sloan or of Section 31. Cisco's investigation of Starfleet headquarters in the matter turns up some odd results. Cisco receives neither confirmation nor denial of Section 31's existence, only promises to look into the matter. However, they didn't say when they'd report back, implying a conspiracy. Bashir comments his surprise that Starfleet would sanction this type of Black Ops activity. Oda presents that Section 31 is comparable to the Romulans Tal Shiar or the Cardassians' Obsidian Order. Bashir refutes that point, asking if they would sacrifice their own principles. Cisco has no answer for that. He suggests that they try and track down Sloan themselves, but reminds everyone that if Section 31 has existed since the birth of the Federation, that they've learned to cover their tracks effectively. Whatever the true nature of Section 31 may be, Cisco says they don't have to go looking for them. Section 31 will come to them. Next time they meet, Cisco wants Bashir to accept membership to bring the organization down from the inside. Oda means that Bashir will finally be able to play spy, but this time for real. Dun dun dun. So let's take a look at some production notes from this episode. The producers originally considered casting Warren Sheen as Sloan, but they would choose William Sadler. According to Ira Bear, quote, "We needed someone who had real power as an actor, who could keep you from jumping to a final conclusion about his character," end quote. Of Sloan's leather outfit at the end of this episode, Constance and Robert Blackman explains, quote, "Ira asked for a dark, black, severe, hostile-looking garments. Well, that's black leather," end quote. The Star Trek Voyager holodeck set is used as a Section 31 holodeck in this episode, end quote. And then finally, let's take a look at some trivia surrounding this episode. So refers to the events of several previous episodes as evidence of Bashir's treachery. Hippocratic Oath, when Bashir attempted to help a group of rogue Jem'Hadar beat their addiction to Ketracel Light, and Purgatory's Shadow, where it's discovered that Bashir had been replaced by a changeling sometime prior. By Inferno's Light, some suggest the fact that Worf's runabout was left orbiting in Termocam 371 meant that the Dominion perhaps allowed Bashir to escape. And statistical probabilities, where Bashir worked with a group of genetically enhanced savants and temporarily became convinced that the Federation could save billions of lives if it were to surrender to the Dominion. It is also feared that Bashir's captivity and replacement by changing lasted for 5 weeks or more specifically 37 days. Since every character in this episode is hologram, once Bashir is made into holodeck, and focusing to anything other than Bashir would give the illusion away, Inquisition is one of the few shows that like any B story. The technique has been followed in other illusory shows with plot twists such as Whispers. Sloan is wearing a special rank insignia, 4 pips with an underline. It's been suggested that Sloan might have held the rank of Starfleet rank of Fleet Captain, as was merely introduced as Deputy Director of Internal Affairs and addressed as Director Sloan. As Dr. Bashir says, this is the first time O'Brien has dislocated his shoulder while kayaking. He's done it twice before in the TNG episode Transfigurations and the DS9 episode Shakar. The medical conference to which Bashir is heading is on Casperia Prime. It's the planet where Jadzia Dax went on her honeymoon in the episode Change of Heart. When Bashir and Sloan meet in the first face-to-face meeting, Sloan apologizes for canceling Bashir's trip to the medical conference, but implies that it may be a blessing in disguise. Lest he would try to attend a medical conference, he would take a prisoner by the Dominion. An experience I wouldn't care to repeat. I'm sure you won't. I'm sure you wouldn't. The irony of this is that, at the end of the episode is revealed that Bashir was again kidnapped under the context of attending a medical conference. At the end of the episode, when discussing the Section 31, similar to the Romulan Tal Shiar and the Cardassian Obsidian Order, Bashir asked Cisco, but what would that say about us? That we're no different than our enemies? That when push comes to shove, willing to throw away our principles in order to survive? To which Cisco replies, I wish I had an answer for you. In the very next episode, Cisco will be forced to ask himself the same question, and he would also get his answer. Craig Lofton does not appear in this episode. Section 31 later appeared in Star Trek Enterprise, Star Trek Into Darkness, Star Trek Discovery, and Star Trek Section 31. In addition to the several Titan novels released in the years since this episode aired. Lieutenant Kagan tells Bashir that he was with the 7th Fleet entire system when 98 ships were destroyed, a reference to A Time to Stand. Odo refers to the Obsidian Order in the past tense, referring to the organization's destruction in the Dice cast. Bashir appears to flip the bird to Sloan as he leaves Ops after the initial meeting. This happens after Sloan tells Bashir that Starfleet Medical already knows who won't be there, at about the 4-minute 35-second mark of the episode. Due to the lack of any official acknowledgement, it appears that this was not expected or noticed during filming, though it seems intentional. So I think this episode is kind of interesting, and yeah, the 7th nonetheless will see of Section 31, so there's that. So overall, I give Inquisition 4 warp cores out of 5. Well, anyway, tune in tomorrow as we take the next episode in the pale moonlight. So, until then, live long and prosper, everybody.